Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You found us again at the start of another epic adventure. This one is a real big one, so make sure you're settled in and ready to take on some of the most amazing destinations in New South Wales. Today we set off on the beginning of our 2022 adventure, starting the new year off the right way. In this trip, you'll see us tour a large portion of the mid and northwestern parts of New South Wales, as well as the northern rivers and of course the beautiful eastern coastline. Over the next 2 weeks, you'll see us head to some of the most must-see and beautiful destinations in New South Wales. This series has a great mixture from some difficult four-wheel driving all the way through to some nice leisurely highway touring. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with the series. Now that you've done that, let's meet up with Ryan and the boys at the start of the adventure, up in the Blue Mountains at Lithgow. Well, here we are, guys. You found us at the start of this big adventure. We are here at the Zigzag Railway in Clarence near Lithgow in New South Wales, and we're going to be starting off the trip today here. Just pulled up at the entrance gate and we're going to be dropping the tyres down to about 25 psi to start doing all the stuff that's around this region. We'll spend the next day or so exploring around here. So today I hope to get out to the Glowworm Tunnel and show you guys that again. Then from there we will head out to the Lost City to do the major kind of attractions in the area, and then from there, fingers crossed that we can head out and camp at the end of Sunnyside Ridge. That is the plan. Whether we'll get to do all of that, I really don't know. We're just going with the flow this time, not really rushing it like we have in the past. This is just going to be a do what we can, and what we don't do this time we'll do it next time kind of trip. So we've got the Pajero fully loaded up. Jake and Tomsy in the nav over here. Things looking really nice with the brand new Goodyears on it, and they're dropping them down now. And Dad over here in the new Ranger. So long story short, Bravo didn't make it to this trip, so he decided to last minute upgrade to this brand spanking Ranger. So we'll see how that goes. It's going to get put to the absolute test over the next 2 weeks. Well, fingers crossed everything's all right. You know, we're really excited. This is the beginning of a massive adventure, so let's get into it. So we began this adventure heading into an all too familiar location, although we were actually taking a route into the Nunes area that we hadn't taken before, starting off from the head of the Zigzag Railway. From here we were heading up towards the Glowworm Tunnel. So there are two main ways you can access this area, from Walgan Road at the head of the Hands Trail, which is where we have entered from on all of our other adventures into the Nunes area, and then there's here at Zigzag. There are plenty of other smaller and less known about entrances into the area, but we are just covering the main ones here. This area is recommended four-wheel drive only, as the road conditions can vary, especially depending on the weather. There are some awesome tracks out in this area, as well as plenty of exploring to do. Well, what a way to start an adventure then, to head in a way that we've never been before. We've been into this region before, and we'll be visiting attractions that we have seen before today. However, we're coming in from a different approach angle. So we did leave arriving until pretty late in the day, so you know, we didn't have too much time on our hands. I think we've just got the perfect amount of time to get everything that we need done today. So we've got myself in the Pajero, Jake and Tomsy in the Navara, and Dad in the Ranger. So you heard that I briefly mentioned that the Bravo didn't make it. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to camp and give you guys a first proper look over of the Ranger, because it's a pretty nice truck, and that'll be what Dad is going to be bringing along from now on. So really looking forward to that. So to start off with, this track seems to just be pretty straightforward, and I think it is going to be pretty straightforward to the Glowworm Tunnel. And then after that, when we get out to the Lost City, that's when we're going to start doing a little bit more the harder four-wheel driving. So yeah, I'm really keen. We're finally back out in the region and as excited as ever. So you heard it correct, we are powering out towards the Glowworm Tunnel for our first destination. Lithgow's Glowworm Tunnel is one of its most famous attractions and a big drawcard for tourists into the Nunes area. It's an absolute must-see for anyone visiting the area. A really cool and unique experience that holds some awesome history to it also. Now we'll touch on the Glowworm Tunnel's specific history when we get there, but if anyone out there is wondering how did this four-wheel drive mecca come to be, well, it's a lot more simple than everyone may think. The entire Nunes and surrounding region were mined for oil shale, which is similar to coal in the early 1900s. There was a large shale refinery at the Nunes township, where the ruins still stand today and can be explored. There was a supporting railway linked to the refinery back in the day, and that's where a lot of the tracks come from, and actually how the Glowworm Tunnel itself was formed. Some of the other tracks in the area are more recently developed due to the power lines being run through the area, and of course, the entire area is still actively mined, and all of these things need to be maintained, hence the amount of tracks in the area. Out on this road into the Glowworm Tunnel, it is accessible by two-wheel drive, although the conditions are just absolutely terrible for a two-wheel drive. You know, the road is kind of potholes and ruts kind of everywhere, but the amount of non-four-wheel drive vehicles that I've seen out here today is quite astonishing. There are quite a few non-four-wheel drive vehicles getting out in this region, and it is quite surprising considering the road conditions. Like, it's super bumpy, but it's also good to see people still just getting out there in general. So good to see they do take up a little bit of time on the old bumpy roads compared to some of the bigger 4Bs, but yeah, it's just general good to see people actually just getting out and enjoying the place. It wasn't long before we were closing in on the Glowworm Tunnel. The track in is actually a section of the old railway, and it's a really spectacular drive. There are sections where you pass through steep cutouts in the cliffs and even an old tunnel in which the train used to run through. The line was opened in 1907 and closed in only 1932. Its primary use, as mentioned, was to carry goods to and from the mines, although it did also double as a passenger service for the workers. I can imagine it would have been pretty spectacular back in the day taking this train ride to and from work. The scenery would have been absolutely stunning. If you look at the ceilings of these old tunnels, you can actually see marks from the soot the old steam train used to let off. Well, as we closed in on the famous attraction, it was pretty clear, as the track narrowed and cars were parked all up along the banks of the track. Now we're on our way down to the Glowworm Tunnel, and I guess as expected there was no parking actually available right at the car park itself, so we've actually had to come up a few hundred meters and park off on a little embankment on the side of the road. I guess that's to be expected, but it's just absolutely amazing in through here. The cliffs and everything like that, it's just awesome. This is definitely just one of those bucket list spots throughout the Lithgow region, one of the main attractions in the area. You don't really need a four-wheel drive to get out here, but I definitely recommend at least an all-wheel drive vehicle with a little bit of clearance, as the road was pretty washed out, but it's just absolutely beautiful through here. A must-see if you're visiting the area. I can't recommend it enough. So just ahead of us now we have about a 10-15 minutes hike to actually get to the Glowworm Tunnel from the car park. It is quite a popular attraction. I guess it would be the most popular attraction in the area. So there's very limited parking all the time. It's always packed through here. So it's just a short walk now and then we'll be down at the Glowworm Tunnel. The tunnel is a short 15 to 25 minute walk from the car park, depending on how quickly you go. The track that you walk along is actually a section of the old railway track, which is pretty cool. The place is unlike any other in the area. The tunnel spans around 400 metres and is one of two abandoned railway tunnels on the line. Due to this particular tunnel structure and it taking a full 180-degree turn as well as a natural creek running through, means that the conditions are perfect for glowworms. They can be found all up the side walls and predominantly on the upper edges of the walls of the tunnel, although to see them clearly you need to turn your lights off. Glowworms are incredibly sensitive to habitat disruption, so things like noise, pollution and shining lights onto them is particularly bad for them, hence why the numbers are not as large in this tunnel as in other parts of the world. The tunnel is visited regularly by hundreds of thousands of people every year who are unaware of this. Despite this, there are still patches of them around and the glowworms continue to reproduce in the tunnel. Now it's important to mention that this isn't the only place in the Blue Mountains that glowworms can be found, although it's definitely your best chance at seeing these awesome little creatures in person, especially in such density, considering you're literally led right to them. Well, so here we are. We made it into the Glowworm Tunnel here. It's a bit dark. Obviously, there's no lights in here. And so this used to be an old railway tunnel that connected down to the Nunes Shell refinery. And I'm not sure how much footage I'll get in here. Try and get a couple of photos, but last time, we didn't have much luck with that. The glowworms are just something I guess you have to come and see, but really cool in here. It's definitely something that you should come and see yourself. Due to the poor light conditions in the tunnel, it was incredibly hard to film the glowworms. As we all know, the GoPros don't do the best in poor light conditions, and especially don't go well with no light at all. So we had to resort to the old iPhone camera to give you guys a glimpse of this awesome sight. And it was safe to say I was surprised just how well the old iPhone camera captured these images. Take a look. Even though they're a little bit blurry, these are the best and only images we were able to capture of this spectacular sight. Patches like this can be found all over the cave. Most unsuspecting people just walk on all the way through with their lights on, but if you stop for a second, turn your lights off and let your eyes adjust, you'll most likely be greeted with a spectacular sight like this, looking like a galaxy of stars on the roof of the tunnel. Once reaching the other side of the tunnel, you're greeted to a beautiful rainforest-style ecosystem that is absolutely stunning. There's a walking track that can be done that takes you back to the Nunes township. It's quite a lengthy walk, although Jared and Nathan did do it on our last adventure here, and I've been told if you've got the experience, it's a fantastic walk and a worthwhile way to spend the day, admiring the beautiful nature of the Wollemi National Park. The only way to get back up to the car park is to walk back through the way you came, so we began the trek back to the cars. The plan today was fairly rough and we wanted to make sure that in our time in Lithgow region we got to see the Glowworm Tunnel and also the Lost City. Anything else was just an added bonus. These are the two main attractions in the area and what most people venture out here to see. What a fantastic little walk this was down to the Glowworm Tunnel. Like I said, it's one of the main attractions in the area and it's just absolutely stunning down in here. It's one of those things that the camera just really can't do justice down here. You just have to come and look at it yourself. Again, like I said before, you can get a two-wheel drive vehicle in here. Just absolutely stunning down in here. So today we have had a slight change of plans as well. Originally we were going to go out to the Lost City and then try and find a camp after that, but now we're just going to go ahead and try and find a camp today, head out to the Lost City tomorrow as we're a little bit short of time. Anyway, we'll see you when you're back up the top near the cars. Well, now it was time to venture off and find a campsite to stay at for the night. Despite there being no real marked campsites in the Nunes area, the place is very well camped, with people finding little nooks and crannies everywhere throughout the region, making their own little piece of the paradise. I had a particular spot in mind that I thought would be a perfect campsite to spend the first night. It was a little ways down the end of a signboarded trail. At this point it was fairly late in the day and we did have a few kilometres of off-road driving ahead, so we best crack into it and get to camp before darkness. So I guess now the challenge to find a camp begins for us. There are stacks of places to camp all around the Nunes State Forest and all this surrounding area. I've got one in mind. There doesn't seem to be that many people around. I guess with, everything that's going on, people are a little bit scared to get out. So maybe that means that we will get a nice spot or something like that, fingers crossed. I've got one in mind, and so we'll go check that out, and if it's no good, I do have a few others in mind as well. So, but fingers crossed that we can get this spot that I have in mind. Even though it was completely off-road, the driving was fairly easy and there were no hard tracks that would be taken to get to camp. The beauty of this area is that there are plenty of easy tracks around and almost all of the difficult obstacles on the main tracks have easy ways around them. So we're taking a pretty big gamble today and we're going to be camping down the end here of this road. 13.8 kilometers, so fingers crossed that nobody else is down there, I guess, because then it'll be a fair drive back. There's not that much space down the end here, and we did go down here last time with Sharma in the Navy Nav, and it was a pretty cool little track with a lot of potential to camp at the end there. So fingers crossed that nobody else is down there already. If they are, I'm sure it'll be right, but yeah, we just prefer to camp away from people. Anyway, we've got all the cars nice and dirty already, as you can see. The Ranger, Navara, and Pajero, they're all doing well so far, but the real test will begin tomorrow, I suppose. So let's get into this track.
The Sunnyside Ridge Trail is a fairly easy track. There are a few unavoidable mud holes and tight sections on the way, but a truly beautiful drive. Take a look at some of the action.
As you guys can see, such an awesome drive to get down and have a look at the end of this awesome trail. We were closing in now on the end and what would be one of the most awesome camps that we have had yet. Well, welcome to camp for the night at the end of this little track here. Now, we haven't been down here before, and there's a reason that I chose this particular spot to camp in. And those guys who have watched our last adventure to Nunes will remember this spot very well. This is why, right here, Would you just look at that view? Wow, this is one of the most rewarding drives in the entire region. This beautiful view over the Wolgan Valley down there. So down further that way is the Nunes Campground down there. There's Wolgan Road that swerves, and you can actually drive all down there, but what a beautiful spot. We'll be camped here for the night. Was really looking forward to camping here, so I'm glad that it came through. This is a little camp here. We aren't alone, but that's all right. I guess a few other people had the same idea as us, try and get up here away from everybody else, but got this really nice little spot here, and so we're going to get camp set up quickly because we're all starving.
The beautiful Wolgan Valley can be observed from our campsite, an absolutely spectacular spot to spend the first night of our adventure. Although having visited this spot before, we had never camped here, so we were excited as ever to wake up to that view. The touring setup on the Pajero made it ever so easy to set up in this spot, truly in its element now. The setup was working perfectly and doing exactly what it was designed to do. A lot of thought had been put into this setup before this trip, and now it was ready for this one and many more to come.
Well, there we have it, just a couple of minutes and I'm set up ready for bed in the wildlands. So now that I've got this set up, while everyone else is still setting up, we're going to get on with dinner before the sun goes down in this absolutely magical spot.
The beauty of having multiple vehicles on this trip is that you guys get to see a diversity of different setups, from an advanced touring setup like mine to more basic setups like on the Navara and the Ranger. It's good to see the differences and compare, but also good to see that you don't always need all the gear to get out there, but it certainly does make it easier and more convenient in some respects.
So here we are, just about set up. We've got the Ranger here, the nav over there, and the Pajero just over there behind me. Should be a nice spot, as long as the wind doesn't pick up too much. Everything will be cool here. So looking forward to staying here for the night, and then tomorrow we'll head into the Lost City again. Didn't have enough time to do that today, so we'll do that tomorrow, and then we'll head out and camp at a different destination, heading towards the Gardens of Stone National Park. That's our plan, and we get some dinner going shortly on the camp kitchen here. First big trip out with this setup. Really keen to put it to the test, as is everybody else with all their new gear. So yeah, really keen, and so happy with this first spot. I mean, just what an amazing spot to start off this trip.
Once camp was set up, the rest of our afternoon was pretty relaxing, as we were all settling into our homes for the next 2 weeks. A lot of the time in the afternoon was spent admiring the beautiful view of the Wolgan Valley, a truly spectacular place to be, and there are really not that many camps with views like this left in this part of the world.
It's just hard to fathom and comprehend sometimes that spots like this are still accessible and that you can still go to them in places like this and enjoy these beautiful parts of the world and actually still camp here. It's just amazing. It's just one of those places that just gives you that really special feeling, and I recommend absolutely to anyone that knows how to get out there to come and enjoy this beautiful part of the world, because it's just stunning. This spot is just one of those spots that makes you want to just stay here forever. I wish I could set up camp right here next to the cliff, but unfortunately you can't get down here. It's really kind of upsetting because you just want to stay here and soak in this view for so long, but you can't. You got to go back up and over the crest to go away to camp. So we'll be here for just tonight, like I just said, and then tomorrow we'll be off doing some more exploring. And this is one of the many spots along the valley that you can overlook this beautiful part of the world, and I'm just so glad that we got to do it.
After cooking dinner, the rest of the afternoon was spent quietly enjoying the scenery and sitting around the campfire. We were all excited and preparing ourselves for the days ahead. There was a lot of excitement about, as tomorrow held some pretty interesting tracks. Little did we know just how big of a day was in front of us though. We were planning not only to tackle the Lost City, but also the Gardens of Stone, a place that we had never been before and had no idea what was in store. Safe to say, we were in for an all-time adventure. Well, good morning guys. Here we are at our second day in this beautiful spot, and we've woken up to another absolutely pristine day. The weather looks good today, so fingers crossed that we can make the most of it. We're just packing up now, cooking up some breakfast, and then we're going to head out towards the Lost City ways. What else we'll get up to, I'm not too sure, and by the end of the day though, aim to be heading towards the Gardens of Stone National Park. That's a little bit of a foreign area for most of us because we haven't actually travelled through there before, and it'll be interesting. Really looking forward to that, and hopefully by the end of the day we'll be out Benbow, Capertee area, something like that, or anyway, we'll figure it out, I'm sure. So we're going to get some breakfast cooked up and then we're going to get out of here. Well, we were gearing up for a big day ahead. To get back out anywhere, we had to first start off by driving the almost 14 kilometres back down the track we came in on, and then begin our trek out to the Lost City. The Lost City is another major attraction in the Nunes and Lithgow area, although access to the Lost City is a little bit more difficult than the Glowworm Tunnel. A four-wheel drive is absolutely essential to get to the Lost City. Packing up camp didn't take as long as expected, and for the setup that each four-wheel drive had, everyone was pretty impressed with how quickly we had set up and packed down on the first day. The Pajero was incredibly fast to set up and pack down, taking only a mere 5 minutes to have everything set up and packed down. Well, it wasn't long before camp was all packed up and we were ready to get into the day. Alrighty, on the road, heading out for the Lost City, here we go. A little note for the old Power Plus throttle controller that I'm running here in the Pajero. When I'm off road, I like to switch it back to the normal throttle response until I really need it. However, on the highway I find myself running a steady 1.9, which is their first setting. I think that's the ideal throttle response for the Pajero. It's just like that little bit more than normal that just helps me get the fuel consumption back to where it should be and the perfect amount of power, and it's not too much too. This little track down Sunnyside Ridge is absolutely stunning. You see a lot of the regrowth still occurring from the bushfires a couple of years back. It's stunning how nature replenishes itself. What once would have been completely burned is now a dense, thick forest with incredible greenery. At the end of this track, we would begin probably the hardest day of four-wheel driving we have had yet, the Lost City being the first stop on the list. The Lost City is the site of an old coal mine and dam. It gets its name from the unusual shapes of the rock formations. You'll get to see it very clearly when we get there. So we're almost at the Lost City now. We've actually come out at a different spot to where we went in, which is kind of weird. I didn't think that this track was like that. I thought it was just one way in, one way out. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Awesome little camp there last night. So now we're going to get out to the Lost City. A little bit of fun stuff on the way. We'll show you guys all of that. Another one of the major attractions in the area. The Lost City sits on the Nunes Plateau above Lithgow. It is one of the true wonders of the Blue Mountains. It was formed by sheets of ironstone sandwiched between layers of sandstone. The formations have weathered so they look like a series of dramatic conical Asian pagodas. The sandstone was laid down by a massive river delta that flowed across the area about 250 million years ago. No one knows where the iron came from or how the formations occurred. It just turned out to be this way. The scenery is absolutely stunning out here, and it is a must-see if you're visiting the area. The trek into the Lost City isn't very long, but it's full of action. Take a look at some of the obstacles that we tackled on the way to the Lost City.
So we finally made it out to the Lost City, and this absolutely stunning place is one of the main attractions in the Lithgow region. And is it really hard to see why with an absolutely stunning view like this? Now there are a few ways that you can access the Lost City across on different cliff tops. However, this is the main way that we've come in, up the Hands Trail and then down a little side trail that gets you to here. So there's a little dam just down the bottom there as well, but I don't think you can get your vehicle down there. If you're willing to walk down the side of a mountain, you can go visit that or swim in that or whatever. But there is also a little lookout here, which we'll give you guys a look at in just a second. Just down the bottom there, well, you could call it a lookout. It's just a big rock that you stand on top of. But we're going to have some lunch here as well, and then we're going to make our way out to the head of the Hands Trail and then try and head through the Gardens of Stone today. That's still the plan. Let's see how we go.
The beauty of the Lost City is hard to miss. The unique and defiant peaks that surround the area look like a decaying civilization buried in the mountains. It's clear at some point all of this region would have been underwater so many millions of years ago. It's another one of those places that you just have to see to believe. There is an old dam at the bottom of the Lost City, although it's not easily accessible, and it's recommended that you just view from a distance. Now that we had made it out here to the Lost City, we were going to take in the scenery while we cooked lunch, then venture off towards the Gardens of Stone. First though, get a look at the beautiful scenery of the Lost City. Well guys, that is going to do it for part 1 of our 2022 adventure. If you're enjoying the series, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already to keep up to date, as well as to tune in next week to see us tackle the epic Gardens of Stone and Turon River region. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week for part 2.